Yo everybody, what's going on? Today we're going to be breaking down UFC 299. A little early look. We've done these on the channel before. We did it with UFC 295 and we did it with UFC 296, giving an early look at the first few fights or my favorite fights announced for upcoming future cards. We're not going to break down 297 considering the fact that that's the next major pay-per-view, and I'd rather save that for when we actually do the full card breakdown on the podcast, but we are going to look at UFC 299. I'll make a video on 298, I believe, and then when a few more bouts get announced, we'll do one for UFC 300. But we're going to kick it off with UFC 299 and breaking down the top 5 fights that I am looking forward to on the cards. So let's get this started with an early look at UFC 299, O'Malley versus Vera 2. So we'll start it off with the main event. The new bantamweight champion in Sugar, Sean O'Malley, defending the title against the only man to defeat him inside the UFC in Marlon Chito Vera. I believe Marlon Vera defeated O'Malley at UFC 250. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I also believe that was the night that Cody Garbrandt no-look knocked out Rafael Assunção in his rise back up to title contention. Looking at this fight and breaking it down, I think that similar aspects of the first fight are going to be able to be played out in this matchup. I think the leg kicks of Vera are going to be a big problem again for Sean O'Malley. The inside low kicks, the calf kicks, the 1-2s. The one thing I do think is that I believe Vera is a little bit more heavy on the finishing instinct, at least at this point in his career, than the first time that they fought. But I also think that Sean O'Malley is so much more adept at using his reach and using his range. And it's going to be more the fact of, can Marlon Vera close off that distance and range before O'Malley's able to either, one, pick him apart, stay on the outside, switch stances, land that front snap kick and the teep kick to the body, attack the leg kicks, throw the jab, throw the 1-2, and kind of pick him apart from the outside and then draw him in, making him over-aggressive to counter just like he did to Aljamain Sterling. I think Sean O'Malley's going to be playing kind of the puppeteer in this matchup, where he's going to want to keep him on the outside, poke at him with the jab, the calf kicks, the lead and rear teep kicks to the body, and then when O'Malley gets, pushed back to the cage or gets backed up, if he's getting backed up in a straight line, I think that's when Marlon Vera is going to try to close that distance. He's going to try to switch stances against the cage and cut him off using head kicks. If you remember, when Vera slowed him down, he was actually just walking down O'Malley, pushing him back, even threw a couple question mark kicks up against the cage to stop that lateral movement. I think it's going to be a very similar game plan for Marlon Vera, and I think the person who has to make more adjustments in this matchup is actually the champion in Sean O'Malley. I think O'Malley is capable of making those adjustments, but at the same time, I think the walk forward, pressure heavy style, high guard to avoid a lot of damage, big calf kicks, inside and outside low kicks, attacking the legs of O'Malley, cutting him off against the cage with elbows as he circles away, check hooks as he circles away, lead head kicks, question mark kicks from the lead and rear side. Cutting off that lateral movement and running him into shots is going to be a very dangerous game plan, even with all the improvements that I think O'Malley has made since their first fight. Like I said, I think O'Malley is the more well-rounded and more improved fighter from the last time we've seen them, but I still think this is a very difficult matchup for him stylistically. I think it would be very, I don't know. I was going to say I think that both of these guys should grapple, but I think if there's any fighter in this fight that's going to pull out the grappling chops, I think it might actually be O'Malley, just to mix up the timing and mix up the striking timing on the feet by level changing and getting the takedown. I think it's a very difficult fight, man, and I've said that a couple times in this short breakdown. But I think O'Malley has the tools to kind of pick apart Vera. It's just, can he put him out? I believe he has the power. I believe he has the technique. I believe he has the timing to catch Marlon Vera and knock him out. But at the same time, we've never seen Marlon Vera get finished before. So if Sean O'Malley can't knock out Marlon Chito Vera, is it going to be a case of where he kind of blows his wad, figuratively speaking, and he gets tired, and then O'Malley gets walked down, pushed back, pushed up against the cage, and gets cut off with elbows, hooks, front kicks, little calf kicks to the lead leg on the inside and outside when he switches stances, chop the inside leg. I think that Marlon Vera is just a very difficult matchup stylistically for Vera. I think that at the same token, O'Malley's a very difficult matchup because of the speed, the timing, the variety, and the fact that with that high guard, he can kind of just get picked apart and stuck on the outside for a majority of it. I think if there's a finish in this fight, it actually comes from the challenger in Marlon Vera. And I know you guys might think like, oh, I'm talking up Marlon Vera, but if you go back and listen to my podcast from the early days of the podcast, I actually picked Marlon Vera to be the first man to defeat Sean O'Malley in the UFC. So, I'm not coming at this from, oh, I'm a Sean O'Malley fanboy. I picked O'Malley to knock out Sterling. I picked Vera to beat O'Malley. It's just styles make fights, and it's different. But I think O'Malley wins this fight comfortably on a decision. I do not think he finishes Vera. Like I said, if there is a finish, I think it comes from the challenger in Chito. But I'm going to go with Sean O'Malley to win this fight via a 48-47 unanimous decision. But I think it's going to be a very close fight. And if there is a finish, I think it's from the challenger in Marlon Vera. He's finished him before, and I think he's more than live to finish him again. But I am going to go with Still, Sugar Sean O'Malley to remain the UFC Bantamweight champion via 48-47 unanimous decision. Up next, we're going to talk about the heavyweight contender bout, the bout that's probably going to determine the next heavyweight title challenger between rising contender, former Contender Series alum in Jailton Almeida, coming off that decision win over Derek the Black Beast Lewis, taking on Curtis Razor Blades, who holds a win over Tom Aspinall, even though it was technically due to an injury. I think that this is a very interesting fight, and although I'm not the biggest fan of Curtis Blades, I think Blades is more than live to win this fight against Jailton Almeida. I don't think he's going to be able to get those takedowns and use that front snap kick into the level change and get the takedowns on a guy like Curtis Blades. And I think that means he's probably going to have to stay on the feet and strike. I think that Almeida is comfortable on the feet, but I don't think he's comfortable on the feet if he has to actually get in to a full-on kickboxing match. I think he's comfortable in spots, but in getting into actual kickboxing exchanges, I don't think he's very comfortable on the feet. I think Curtis Blades has better boxing. I think Blades uses his jab better. I think he has more knockout power on the feet. I think that on the ground, the takedown defense is going to be better from Blades, but once the fight hits the mat, I think it's going to be to a point where I think Almeida is going to be able to control him. It's just going to be the fact of, can he get those takedowns on a guy like Blades? Can he level change? Can he take him down? Because I think if he does take him down, I don't know if Blades is going to be able to get back up. But it's about stopping the takedown attempt more than having to worry about getting back up off your back, or getting up off your back, I guess you could say. I think on the feet, like I said, Blades is more powerful. I think he has more variety. I think he's more technical. I think he's crisper. I think he can catch Jailton Almeida. I think the takedowns are going to be difficult for Blades to stop or see coming because of the speed of Almeida. I think Almeida's a lot faster in terms of his overall mixed martial arts game. The takedowns, the changing of direction, the changing of takedown attempts from single to double, to turning the corner to the crackdown series, changing the single to the double, double to single, etc. I think that it's going to be difficult for Blades to read a guy like Almeida. I think this is a very difficult matchup. I actually think this is a coin flip fight, and I think a lot of people are just riding the coattails of Almeida, but I'm very, very surprised he wasn't able to submit or TKO Derek Lewis when we've seen so many times before him either getting TKO'd on the ground or submitted. He's been submitted a handful of times, and I know this guy was a former light heavyweight, but going up to the heavyweight division, how are you not able to submit Derek Lewis when you're known as like this jiu-jitsu ace? If you can't submit Derek Lewis, I find it very difficult to believe you're going to be able to submit a guy like Curtis Blades. And if you can't submit him, I think he can probably control him on his back for 2 rounds. On the feet, though, I give the advantage to Blades. Finishing upside, the chin of Curtis Blades is suspect, so there is a possibility that Almeida could knock him out, catch him with a big shot on the feet, and put him out. But honestly, after what I saw from that Derek Lewis fight, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm actually going to pick Curtis Blades. I think Curtis Blades is going to knock out Jailton Almeida. I don't know what the odds are. I'm not even thinking about the odds. But stylistically, I think the power, the boxing ability, the improvements that Blades has made on the feet, the takedown defense, I think he's going to be a little bit too much for Jailton, and I think he's more comfortable on the feet than Almeida. And I think there's going to be a point where he catches him with a big shot. I think it's probably going to be a right hand, hurts him, jumps on him, and gets him out of there. I think Curtis Blades is going to upset a lot of people. It's not my favorite pick because I'm not the biggest fan of Curtis Blades. I actually like Almeida more than I do like Blades, but I think Curtis Blades is going to be able to knock out Jailton Almeida. I think just stylistically, this is a bad fight for the newcomer in Almeida. So give me Curtis Blades, second round TKO. All right, up next is a lightweight contender bout. I guess it's more of a contender bout for one specific individual in a bout between Mateus Gamrot taking on Rafael Dos Anjos, former lightweight champion. I think that this is a Gamrot fight all day. I'm going to be honest. I think RDA is trying to find some type of success, 170, 155, 155, 170, and he's kind of hopping between weight classes. And I think when you see a fighter hopping between two separate weight classes, it's more based on the fact that they don't know where to go for optimal success, and they're kind of confused at this point in their career. He got out-wrestled, controlled, out-grappled, taken down by Vicente Luque at 170, where we never see Luque resort to offensive wrestling. And that was really the first time we've ever seen him use offensive wrestling, aside from offensive jiu-jitsu. But he was able to take down RDA, control him, get him down early, get him down often, and he was just too big. Now at 155, he's going up against arguably the best grappler in that division, aside from, Beneil Dariush and Islam Makhachev. And, I think that it's just going to be too much for RDA. Could RDA catch him on the feet? Yes. Is he the more cleaner striker? Yes. But Gamrot has good striking. He moves good laterally. He uses his jab well, his 1-2. He cuts off to that rear side angle. He uses a bunch of takedown attempts, and he chains his takedown attempts together. RDA has always had issues with high-level wrestlers, and now you have a high-level wrestler who also is a decently high-level striker, paired with a very, very high level of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and submission game and finishing upside. So I think this fight screams RDA not really knowing where he wants to go in his career, and RDA is more than likely going to lose this one by submission. I could see a ground and pound TKO. I could see a submission. I know RDA hasn't been submitted in his career in the UFC. I think he might have been submitted once early on. He's been knocked out before. I think there's a chance Gamrot could catch him on the feet and knock him out. We've seen Gamrot knock people out before. But yeah, I like Mateus Gamrot in this fight. I think RDA is towards the tail end of his career, and he's just trying to figure out where to go, and I don't think that's a really smart idea. So I'm going to take Mateus Gamrot, second round Kimura submission. Up next, we have the highly anticipated UFC debut, a former Bellator MMA competitor, former kickboxer in Michael Venom Page, making his long-awaited UFC debut, taking on Kevin Trailblazer Holland. Excuse me, you can tell that the UFC has high hopes for Michael Venom Page. I think they want him to win a world title. They want to use him to promote more cards in London and do all those type of things that we see with like a Tom Aspinall. I think they see a lot of upside in a fighter like Michael Venom Page. And giving him a guy like Kevin Holland, man, it's not an easy UFC debut. Holland's very long, awkward, rangy. He has a really good 1-2 right down the middle. Good hooks, good kicks. Awkward striking. He can catch people on awkward angles. You could have his leg up in a single leg. He can catch you with a back fist and hurt you. He also has submissions in his back pocket. If you shoot a bad takedown, he can jump on the darce. He has good attacks off his back with arm bars, triangles, going for omoplatas. We've seen him do that back in his UFC debut against Thiago Santos. I mean, Kevin Holland's a well-rounded fighter, but I think Michael Venom Page is a very, very difficult matchup stylistically for a fighter like Kevin Holland. I see a lot of similarities between him and Wonderboy, except I think Michael Venom Page is a lot faster, and he has a lot more knockout power than a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. The only thing you do have to worry about is that Michael Venom Page has some durability issues. He gets clipped a lot. He gets hurt. We've seen him get knocked out cold by Douglas Lima back in Bellator, and he's not been knocked out a lot, but we've seen him knocked out before. And with the power, reach, length of Kevin Holland, with the hands-down style of both of these guys, but Michael Venom Page kind of that side stance, traditional martial arts, moving in and out, a lot of head movement, a lot of taunting, trying to pull the opponent in to catch him with a big shot. I think it's very, very difficult, and I could see Kevin Holland knocking out Michael Venom Page. I could see Holland winning by submission. I could see Michael Venom Page knocking out Kevin Holland as well. I think it's a very difficult fight. It's a great fight for the fans. It's going to be a firefight. Somebody's going to get finished. I'm going to have to side with Michael Venom Page, though. I think Michael Venom Page is going to knock out Kevin Holland. Like I said, I see a lot of similarities between this and the Wonder Boy fight, but I think the biggest difference is the speed and the angles that Michael Venom Page is able to attack you at. But paired with the speed and the concussive knockout power, I think he's going to time him with a big right hand and dart in when Kevin Holland is kind of lackadaisical, kind of sitting there waiting. And he's going to come in, boom, he's going to rush in with that darting right hand. And I think he's going to hit him on the chin and knock him out. So give me a big right hand KO from Michael Venom Page in round 1. I'm going to go round 1 knockout, Michael Venom Page. I could easily see Kevin Holland submitting Michael Venom Page. I could see Kevin Holland knocking out Michael Venom Page, because we've seen Michael Venom Page get knocked out before. But I'm going to go with MVP to get the W in his debut inside the UFC. All right, up next we've got a pretty quick turnaround for the man coming off that main event win over Chris Gutierrez and the Kung Fu Kid Song Yadong, taking on the toughest fight of his career and a very, very interesting stylistic matchup in the former interim and undisputed UFC bantamweight champion in Piotr No Mercy Yan. Yan versus Song Yadong is a great fight. I'm a very big fan of both of these guys, which makes this fight very difficult to call. I've wanted to see this fight for a long time. I believe I even made a couple videos on the channel breaking down like this fight and saying that it should have happened maybe like a year ago or a little bit over a year ago. But Peter Yan needs to win, and Song Yadong kind of can't afford to lose at this point. Whoever wins this fight is kind of in line for either a number 1 contenders bout or a title shot. If Song Yadong wins, Song Yadong is more than likely going to get a crack at the 135-pound championship, the winner of Sean O'Malley and Marlon Vera. I think that this fight, it's either that or they get the winner of Merab and Henry Cejudo. Piotr Yan got dominated by Merab Dvalishvili. Lost almost every single round. I believe it was every single round. Got pushed back, got pressured, couldn't develop his timing, couldn't find his range, couldn't find his counters. Merab just didn't let him breathe, and that was a very tough fight for me to watch. I really wanted Piotr Yan to get that job done. I thought he was going to be able to. But I guess that just shows you how good Marlon Moraes is. I mean, Moraes was the closest guy to finishing Merab in his UFC career so far. Looking at this fight, the more technical striker in terms of the boxing is Piotr Yan. I feel like he finds his shots better. He's more crisp, more clean. The shots are less telegraphed. But I think the power and the speed is more on the side of Song Yadong. I would say more power because I think Yan is deceptively quick, because he finds those little tiny slivers of openings to counter you. You know, cover, come back with the counter hook on the same side, catch the kick, come back with the counter. He lands a lot of combinations, and he kind of is a guy who downloads the data and reads fights. And that has cost him in his career before, and it could cost him here. This is going to be a 3-round fight. If Song Yadong pushes forward, lands big, heavy power shots, big right hands, big left hooks, and Yan isn't able to download that data until the midpoint of the 2nd round, then it's going to make the fight a toss-up, and if the fight's close, Yan might get behind on the scorecards and end up losing a decision. We know that Song Yadong has won decisions in the past, most notably against the man in the main event for this card in Marlon Vera. He won via split decision. I think it was a split decision, but it's a very tough fight to call, to be honest. I think that was one of the first fight nights for the COVID era of the UFC. I love Piotr Yan. I'm a big fan of Song Yadong as well. Like I said, I think the power is on the side of Song Yadong. I think the wrestling would be on the side of Song Yadong if he's able to use it. But Yan can wrestle too. I mean, he took down Aljamain a bunch of times in their first fight, but then he did get taken down and controlled in the second one, got out-wrestled by Merab. I think Yan and Song, their wrestling might cancel out, but if anybody's going to push the takedowns, I would say it's probably going to be Yan towards the end of the rounds. But in the middle rounds and the beginning of rounds, if anybody's going to push forward that wrestling game plan, I think that's going to be Song Yadong. Yadong has the power where if he catches Yan on the chin once or twice with a clean shot, I think he can knock him out. He's definitely there to get hit. Yan got hit and stumbled with a big knee by Sean O'Malley. He got clipped with a right hand or a left hand off the stance change and got clipped. But Yan is so good at drawing opponents in and finding counters. I think the cleaner fighter, the fighter who's going to make bigger adjustments during the fight, is going to be Piotr Yan. This is a coin flip fight for me at this point, though. I mean, Yan is at the point where he really needs a win. I mean, he lost to Sean O'Malley. He lost to Merab Dvalishvili. He lost that second fight to Aljamain. He won that fight against Corey Sandhagen. I think he's 1-3 in his last 4 fights, and that's a guy who was dominating everybody in his UFC career. So it's a tough fight to call. I really don't know who's going to win this one, and this is probably the fight on this card that I'm looking forward to the most. But like I said, I think the power of Song Yadong, the big right hands, the big kicks, the head kicks, the body kicks, the calf kicks, the counter ability is going to come from, not so much counter ability, but all the other things I mentioned is going to come from Song Yadong. But the counters, the timing, finding the range, cutting off the opponent, landing the shots in between the wide looping punches is going to come from Yan. And I think the counters in between the wide looping shots is going to come from Petr Yan, and I think he's going to win this fight. So give me Petr No Mercy Yan to defeat Song Yadong via 29-28 unanimous decision. I could see a late TKO because Song does overcommit and really telegraph his overhands, his hooks, his uppercuts. He throws heavy, heavy power, and I think the counter game of Petr Yan is going to be there to catch him. After he misses, Yan's going to come back on those counters with the left hook, the lead left high kick, hiding the left body kick or head kick behind the lead hook, hiding it behind the rear hook, catching him as he circles away with the head kicks. I think the counter game and the striking ability and the ability to find the openings, the little sliver of openings in between the wide shots is going to come from Petr Yan. So I'm going to take Petr No Mercy Yan via a late 3rd round TKO or a decision. I'll go late 3rd round. No, we'll go decision. I'll go decision. 29-28 unanimous decision for Petr Yan. All right, and the final fight we're going to talk about is a welterweight banger between Gilbert Durinho Burns taking on rising contender and somewhat of a UFC newcomer, former Contender Series winner in Jack Della Maddalena. This is a great matchup. Honestly, it's very, very difficult to predict because I think if the grappling is pushed heavily from a fighter in Gilbert Burns, he could win this fight. If he uses his wrestling, if he uses his takedowns, if he pushes Jack Della up against the cage. I mean, we saw in the fight on short notice, or the short notice fight against Basil Hafez, that Della Maddalena was jumping guillotines, trying to stop the takedowns, or getting Basil Hafez to jump into some guillotines and use that to defend the takedowns more than actual defense, and that made the fight very close, causing Della Maddalena to win a split decision, but he really came on in round 3, kind of like a Petr Yan style. The guy finds his openings, high guard, finds his openings, straight left, right hook, 1-2s down the middle, beautiful body work, good uppercuts. If he stands on the feet and strikes with Gilbert Burns, I think Burns is in for a nightmare. I think Burns will get knocked out, he'll get pieced up, he'll get put away by Jack Della if they strike it out on the feet. As long as Della Maddalena can use those stance changes, use the little switch 45, brief stance changes to square up the hips of Burns and then shoot those straights, shoots the jab, shoots the shots to the body. I definitely think that Jack Della can piece up Gilbert Burns on the feet, but if Burns uses the wrestling, pushes forward, gets the takedowns, gets on top, I think the jiu-jitsu, the top control, the wrestling is very, very live here for Burns to either TKO or submit Jack Della once it hits the mat. But I think Della Maddalena is going to be suspecting a heavy wrestling game plan, and I think he's going to want to keep it on the feet. He's going to be able to find his openings. He's going to be able to cut off a guy like Gilbert Burns, who, yes, is a good striker, but he relies on those big power shots, big uppercuts, big overhands, big looping punches. And in between those looping shots is when Della's going to land that jab. He's going to land those straight punches, those short uppercuts. He's going to rip those shots to the body. And as long as he can avoid the big power shots and come back on counters, I mean, if you watch the Usman versus Gilbert Burns fight, he was able to pull the jab and come back with a counter right hand that really hurt Gilbert Burns. And he was able to find the timing and then eventually knock him out with a switch stance jab. I think that is something that Jack Della is more than live to do here. I think he can hurt him with a body shot and drop him. I'm going to go with the newcomer in Jack Della Maddalena to TKO Gilbert Burns in this matchup. I really like Jack Della, his footwork, his composure, his movement, the lack of windup, and just the short, technical, crisp boxing that he employs. I don't really see Gilbert Burns using his wrestling, but if he does, it's going to make it a much closer fight. Burns is always live for a big shot, but I think this is the changing of the guard. That's how I see this fight. It's a changing of the guard, and I think Jack Della Maddalena is going to get this done via a second-round TKO. I think he's going to hurt Burns on the feet, find those big counters, wobble him, and I think he's going to drop him with a body shot and then jump on him for a TKO. So I'm going to go with Jack Della Maddalena to defeat Gilbert Durinho Burns via second round TKO.